Today we're taking on a really dark, but I think essential piece of history. We're going to be peeling back the layers on the execution of Tsar Nicholas II and his family. It all happened in Yekaterinburg on the night of July 17, 1918.
Right.
And our goal here isn't just to, go over the grim facts of that night. We really want to understand the machinery that led to it.
Exactly. The convergence of this crumbling, failed monarchy with a new, ruthless, and just completely unforgiving political ideology.
Led by Vladimir Lenin. The deep dive is really about finding that precise point where political calculation just completely overwhelmed any sense of humanity.
It's a grim calculus.
It is. And to grasp the scope of it, we have to recognize who the victims were. It wasn't just the immediate family, Nicholas, his wife Alexandra, their 5 children, Olga, Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia, and Alexei, the young heir.
Who was a hemophiliac, which is a key part of their story.
A key part, yes. But it was also 4 other people. 4 people whose loyalty, well, it cost them everything. Dr. Eugene Botkin, the maid Anna Demidova, the cook Ivan Kurinov, and the footman Alexei Trupp.
All 11 of them, extinguished in this one brutal, meticulously planned operation.
Meticulously concealed, too.
Oh, absolutely. And when you look at the sources on this, what really stands out is that this was more than just regicide. This was an act of profound political theater.
How so?
It was the bloody cornerstone for the new Soviet state. It sent a message that the revolution would be absolutely ruthless to survive. And even though there's no signed death warrant from Lenin,
Right, that's the big question.
the evidence all points to his ultimate political and, I'd argue, moral responsibility. The Bolsheviks saw it as a necessary liquidation of class enemies to build their new world.
That sets the stage perfectly. But before that ideology could demand their elimination, the whole Tsar's system had to fall apart first. So let's go back. Let's go back to 1894 when Nicholas II came to the throne.
Okay, so he's ruling this nation of staggering extremes. I mean, he's 1/6 of the globe, over 125 million people, dozens and dozens of ethnicities.
I mean, he's steeped in this idea of autocracy.
Deeply. He sincerely believed he was divinely appointed, a patriarch, guiding his people.
But the reality on the ground was completely different.
Completely. You had the vast majority of people, the peasantry, living in just awful serf-like conditions. And then industrialization creates this new urban working class living in squalor with child labor. It's a powder keg.
And he just refused to bend. We see that so clearly after Bloody Sunday in 1905, when his own guards fire on peaceful demonstrators. His image as the little father of the people is just, it's shattered.
Irrevocably. And that's a key turning point. The trauma of 1905 forced him to create the Duma, a legislative body. But he never really believed in it.
It kept dissolving it.
Exactly. He undermined it at every turn, which just proved he had no intention of ever sharing power. The system was just too rigid.
So the autocracy was doomed, not just by the pressure from outside, but by its own inflexibility. And then, the First World War.
Well, the war was the final nail in the coffin. It was fatal. Russia's involvement just exposed the government's complete incompetence.
You have catastrophic military failures, food shortages in the cities.
Millions of deaths, morale's gone. The structural rot becomes a full-blown systemic collapse.
So by March 1917, it's over. Protests are up in Petrograd. The military refuses to fire on the crowds. This is the February Revolution.
The game was up. He had no support left. He signs the abdication on March 15th, and just like that, 304 years of Romanov rule ends.
And at that moment, exile was still on the table, right?
Oh, absolutely. You have to remember the provisional government, which took over first, was fairly moderate. The family was held in relative comfort. King George V of England, his cousin, was a potential host.
But that window closed very, very quickly.
Incredibly quickly, because political power in Russia was about to take a violent turn to the left.
And that brings us to the man who forced that turn, Vladimir Ulyanov. Lenin.
And his path to revolutionary violence. It wasn't just theoretical. The sources show it was deeply personal for him.
His brother.
Exactly. His older brother, Alexander, was executed in 1887 for trying to assassinate the Tsar's father. And that event it solidified Lenin's belief that you couldn't negotiate with the autocracy. It had to be completely destroyed. Violently.
And he didn't just read Marx, he engineered a loophole in Marxism for Russia.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. Marx thought revolution would happen in advanced industrial countries. Lenin said, no, backward, feudal Russia can skip the bourgeois phase entirely and jump straight to socialism.
But only under one condition.
A disciplined, centralized vanguard leadership. And that vanguard is the critical ideological link to what happens in Yekaterinburg. It means a small party can decide what's necessary for the masses, even if it means terrorizing them.
And he put that into action so fast, he gets smuggled back into Russia in that sealed train in April 1917.
With German help, yeah. They wanted to destabilize Russia's war effort. His timing was, well, it was perfect. He arrived with these slogans that just resonated with everyone. Peace, land, and bread. All power to the Soviets.
And that momentum is what allows the Bolsheviks to launch the October Revolution in November 1917. They seize power. Lenin is in charge.
Right. It was a highly coordinated seizure of infrastructure, bridges, telegraphs, and suddenly the Romanovs, who were prisoners of a moderate government, are now prisoners of a radical revolutionary state.
So how did their captivity change then?
It worsened immediately. The Bolsheviks had no intention of letting the Tsar become a rallying point for counter-revolutionaries abroad.
So King George V withdraws the offer of asylum.
It does, yeah, citing fears of backlash at home in Britain. So the family gets moved deeper into isolation, first in August 1917 to Tobolsk in Siberia.
But even that wasn't remote enough.
Not for the real radicals, no. By April 1918, the Ural Soviet, this fiercely radical committee in the Bolshevik stronghold of Yekaterinburg, they demanded control.
And that's when they're moved to the Ipatiev house.
The House of Special Purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, the name itself. The conditions there become punitive right away. Iron bars on the windows, walls whitewashed so they can't see out. They're not prisoners anymore, they're hostages.
And the threat is escalating because the Russian Civil War is now in full swing.
Exactly. The Red Army versus the anti-Bolshevik White Army. And the Whites, including the Czechoslovak Legion, are advancing on Yekaterinburg. Fast.
So the Romanovs become this ticking political bomb.
A palpable threat to the revolution's survival. Their very existence was a problem for Moscow.
Which brings us to the central question. Did Lenin actually sign an order to kill the entire family?
He did not. There is no document, no piece of paper with his signature saying kill the Tsar.
But
The overwhelming evidence, which our sources detail, points to covert approval from the very top.
Yeah.
Specifically from Lenin and his close associate, Yakov Sverdlov.
who was the chair of the All-Russian Central Executive Committee?
Right, so the local Ural Soviet, they're the ones who make the final call. They sense the danger from the advancing Whites. On July 16th, they send a coded telegram to Moscow asking for permission.
And the reply comes back.
Instantly.
Mm.
Sverdlov's coded reply says, "We decree immediate execution." And historians are pretty much unified on this. Sverdlov would never have taken responsibility for a decision that huge without Lenin's direct, even if tacit, consent.
And it fits the pattern. I mean, Lenin had already authorized the Red Terror. He'd created the Cheka, the secret police, to eliminate enemies of the revolution.
Precisely. In Lenin's mind, the Tsar wasn't a person. He was a symbol. The physical embodiment of the old exploiting class, a figurehead for the Whites.
So his death was just a strategic necessity.
A preemptive strike. Him and his entire family. They were liquidated as symbols, not judged as people.
So if the execution was this cold political calculation, how did that chilling ideology translate into the actual visceral mechanics of the crime that night?
The preparation was clinical. Yakov Yarovsky, the commandant of the house, he wakes the family up around 11:30 p.m. He tells them they're being moved for their own safety.
And he leads them down into a basement room.
A small, windowless, semi-basement room. And it's those small details that are just haunting. They asked for chairs and were given 3. For Nicholas, Alexandra, and the frail Alexei.
You're just waiting there.
Waiting.
Yeah.
And then the execution squad files in, 10 men. Yarovsky steps forward and reads this incredibly brief statement. Nicholas Alexandrovich, in view of the fact that your relatives continue their attack on Soviet Russia, the Ural Executive Committee has decided to execute you.
And the chaos was instantaneous.
Immediate. 10 men opened fire in that tiny room. Nicholas and Alexandra were apparently killed instantly.
But then came this truly grotesque twist.
Yes. The Grand Duchesses, the daughters, they didn't die right away. They had sewn diamonds and family jewels into their corsets.
A desperate attempt to smuggle out some wealth.
And that mass of jewels acted like makeshift body armor. The bullets literally bounced off.
Oh, that's horrific. It prolonged the whole thing.
It turned it into a frantic, disorganized bloodbath. The assassins had to use bayonets and close-range pistol shots to finish the job. Yarovsky himself shot Alexei in the head. The whole thing took about 20 minutes.
And right away, the cover-up begins.
A cover-up just as brutal as the execution. The bodies were stripped, mutilated, doused in sulfuric acid to destroy their features, and then secretly buried in a forest.
The Soviet regime knew that murdering children was politically toxic.
Oh, absolutely. So they denied it. At first they said nothing happened. Then they claimed only Nicholas was executed by some overzealous locals. And that lie is what fueled all those rumors for decades about survivors.
Especially Anastasia and the Anna Anderson case.
Exactly. But the truth, eventually it came out. Amateur historians found the mass grave in 1979.
But it couldn't be confirmed until after the Soviet Union collapsed.
Right. It wasn't until 1991 that the remains were finally exhumed. DNA testing, with help from relatives like Britain's Prince Philip, confirmed it was Nicholas, Alexandra, and 3 of the daughters.
But 2 were still missing.
For a while, yes. It took until 2007 to find the missing remains of Alexei and one of his sisters, likely Maria, in a separate grave nearby. That finally brought closure.
And that closure led to this huge historical reckoning in Russia.
It did. The reburial in 1998, President Boris Yeltsin attended and publicly acknowledged the crime. The Russian Orthodox Church later canonized the family. It really highlights that tension between the so-called political necessity and the moral outrage that lasted for generations.
So the Bolsheviks thought that by eliminating the Romanovs, they'd eliminate a rallying point for the counter-revolution. But what did that act do to the party itself?
It solidified terror as a legitimate political tool. It established that nothing, not even the lives of children, was more sacred than the revolution. You even see conflict within the party. The German communist Karl Radek reportedly said, "We didn't need to kill the children."
That's telling.
It reveals the dark heart of it all. It's an ideology where murdering innocents gets rationalized as a necessary sacrifice. That basement room in Yekaterinburg, that's where the new regime showed the world that its ends would always justify the most brutal means. It defined the Soviet state from the very beginning.
So the Romanov tragedy really is this stark collision, isn't it? The absolute decay of one kind of power meeting the absolute brutality of a new ideological order. The execution destroyed a symbol, yes, but it also cemented the revolution's reputation for ruthlessness long before the Civil War was even won. The story of that basement remains a solemn warning about the price of power. I want to leave you with this final thought. When they were faced with imminent collapse, the Bolshevik leadership chose to sacrifice human life for political necessity. What stands out to you most about that foundational choice, and how do you think it dictated the century of history that followed?